Chapter 5, And the Darkness Grows. It had been over a month since Overhaul's encounter with Big Mac, and much has changed in Ponyville. News of Overhaul spread throughout all the cities in Equestria, sending fear into stallions and hermaphrodites all across the nation. With how diligently he has worked, Overhaul has given every single one of the mare from this small town their freedom from their cruel owners. Overhaul had a simple yet terrifying offer he made to every mare owner in Ponyville: hand over their mares or die. While most of the stallions gave him their mares in exchange for sparing their lives, there were a few stallions who Overhaul killed because they refused his offer. Chisaki knew that all of this was to be expected with how violent his path of revolution was going to be, but there were a few things that even surprised him. Even after such a short amount of time, he amassed a large number of ponies who were more than willing to support his cause, especially younger stallions who had childhood friends that didn't grow into a hermaphrodite. While he had a pretty good idea of what they meant by that, he decided to check if they were lying or not by reading a book on pony biology. Normally Chisaki could have just asked one of the more knowledgeable girls, like Twilight, if what he was told was true. But all 6 of them, plus Spike, were sent off with some hired help to do a little negotiating with one of Celestia's many enemies. So it is true. Chisaki voiced his surprise as he read aloud directly from the book: when an equestrian mare turns 13, at any moment over the course of the next year they may end up growing a male's genitalia, turning them into a hermaphrodite. Equally surprised as he was disgusted, Chisaki took a bookmark and placed it in his biology textbook. Reforming the world was still a long ways away, but he needed a momentary break to just relax and enjoy the fruits of his labor up unto this point. He took a one-handed machete, that was a gift from Fluttershy. He fixed it on his belt and left to wonder this new Ponyville he had made. While Chisaki had never needed to use it, it meant a lot to him because Fluttershy had given it to him as a gift. Meanwhile, at Equestria's capital city Canterlot, Shining Armor had gotten word from the royal sisters that there was a new threat to Equestria. They had decided to send both him and his wife, Cadance, who was also a hermaphrodite alicorn, to go scope it out. While the married couple were very upset about cutting their honeymoon vacation short, they only had a week left planned anyways, so it wasn't that much of a big deal to them. Celestia told them that the new threat to Equestria, who had named themselves Overhaul, was located in Ponyville. While the two of them were vividly familiar with the name, they had no clue what he was capable of. Cadance was almost thrilled to go pay that ownahole of a sister-in-law a visit, while Shining was far more worried than Cadance was. It wasn't the same kind of worry that an older sibling had for their younger sibling. Those feelings died out long ago when it was discovered that Twilight didn't become a hermaphrodite when she came of age, but instead his worry was closer to if he had let something of monetary value get ruined or destroyed. "Hey hon," Cadance said, "it feels like we've been searching for hours. Why don't we stop and go visit Spike for a foursome with him and your sister?" "Cadance, dear," Shining Armor sighed, "it hasn't even been 5 minutes since we walked past that Welcome to Ponyville sign. Come on, it's been forever since we have seen her." Cadance whined, "Can't we at least stop by to let her know we're here?" "Fine." Shining Armor relented, "but absolutely no fucking while we're there. Knowing you, we'd end up forgetting why we came here and end up staying an extra week." As the two of them began getting closer the center of the town, they saw something that disturbed them greatly. Several young mares, stallions, and hermaphrodites all taking to each other as if there was no gender hierarchy. While many pony moved out of their way when they noticed Shining Armor and his wife headed their way, there were also a few he just didn't seem to care. The married couple looked at each other in mild confusion. Was this the danger Celestia was talking about? After a moment to figure out how to approach this situation, Shining Armor walked up to the group of young adult ponies. But before he could get the words to form in his mouth, they all scattered in several different directions. This happened several times before he managed to grab a mare by the wrist, but she sipped away before he could do anything to her. Eventually, Shining Armor was approached by an almost completely hairless figure in a beak-shaped mask. Judging by the clothes he wore, he must have been in the higher rank of something. I presume you two must be Shining Armor and Princess Cadance. Chisaki looked at each of them when he said their respective names. Yes, you are correct, Shining Armor said, and I believe you are Overhaul, am I right? No. My name is Chisaki, Overhaul is the name of my boss. He lied with a lie he had very well rehearsed. While I don't hold a specific title here, I am like a local law enforcement. Oh, I am sorry. Shining Armor replied, even though something still felt off. Don't worry about it. Chisaki replied, before changing his calm and friendly demeanor into an expression that would strike fear into the hearts of dragons. What you should worry about is some recent accusations against you. I got a few mares come up to me saying you were going to rape them. That's not true. Cadance chimed in, we were just exploring the new Ponyville is all, we wouldn't rape any of the mares here. Really? Chisaki furrowed his brow, because I know you two didn't just come here to explore. Both you and your husband are pretty high up in nobility status, so much so that you oversee other who are in charge of preparing mares for the princesses Celestia and Luna. Shining Armor and Princess Cadance were both stunned silent. Had some pony leaked their orders from the princess? No, this individual was a lot more cunning than what he let on to be. Even though what he said was almost completely common knowledge in larger cities, only a very select few stallions in Ponyville knew exactly what the married couple's title entailed. One of said stallions was the now deceased Big Macintosh. Listen, just tell me what your plan was, and I may be willing to negotiate with my boss to let you live. Chisaki said, if you wish to speak about it in private, there is a clearing nearby my place we can use. Shining Armor scowled, fine. As the pair follow him, Chisaki could tell by the way they walked that they were quickly catching on to what his plan was. If they weren't planning on attacking him now, then they will soon. Luckily, they had reached their destination before any punches were thrown. Shining Armor and Cadance knew this place, this was where Fluttershy's cottage was, and it appeared to be undergoing massive renovations. Are you ready to start talking? Chisaki asked, my boss. Just quite it with the act. Shining Armor blurted out, you are Overhaul, there is no denying it. Chisaki stared at them with a blank expression, was it that obvious? Well, I must thank you for humoring me up until now. You better start telling us what your plans are, or else. Shining Armor threatened as he pointed his sword at Overhaul's neck. There is nothing that I wish to tell you. Overhaul replied, as he readied himself to fight, so I will take the or else. Clashing head-on, Overhaul managed to block most of the impact of the captain's swing with his machete. With only a moment to react, Overhaul managed to take Shining Armor off guard by delivering a surprise kick to the side of his armor. While the alabaster stallion stumbled over onto his side, Overhaul felt a searing pain in his foot as realized he probably broke something. But with no time to worry over the repercussions of this fight, Overhaul stayed on the offensive, planning on ending this spar as quickly as he could. As Overhaul was about to drive his knife through one of the weak points in his enemy's armor, a powerful blast of magic struck him to the ground. With Overhaul was thrown to the ground, Shining Armor got off the ground and recomposed himself. I hope you haven't forgotten about me, Cadance said, because you seem to have forgotten that there are two of us. That barely hurt. Overhaul commented, as he put away his knife, and besides, I think you two have already had enough of a handicap already. I've always preferred using my hands. Overhaul slammed his hands into the ground, eviscerating his gloves in the process. The ground beneath his hand shattered into particles before being rearranged into reinforced stone gauntlets with razor talons. The pair of gauntlets went all the way up his arm, protecting even his collarbone from any incoming strikes. The two ponies froze at the sight of such a unique and dangerous ability, but they were quickly jolted back into reality when Overhaul dashed towards them. Shining Armor had dodged to the side hoping to counter-attack, but it wasn't him he was going after this time. Despite Cadence's best efforts to get away from Overhaul, he had grabbed by the wing joint and threw her at her husband, making the two collide with each other. Are you all right? Shining Armor asked Cadence. For the most part, she replied before looking at her crippled wing, but if we survive this, I won't be flying much. How much longer do you need for the spell to work? Shining asked. Just a few more minutes. But before they could trade any other words, Overhaul began charging at them. Trying to buy as much time as possible, the two of them bolted in opposite directions. With not even a moment to decide, Overhaul decided to pursue the alabaster stallion. Shining Armor changed to the offensive and attempted to stand his ground against the masked human. When he had swung his sword, a resounding clanking sound was made as it collided with the reinforced stone that protected Overhaul's arms. With his 4 talons pointing outwards, Overhaul stabbed his hand into Shining Armor's stomach, easily penetrating the royal armor he wore. As he fell to the ground, Shining Armor curled up into the fetal position as he seethed in pain. Blood dripped down from Overhaul's stone gauntlets as he crippled the royal guard's captain and left him for dead. But as soon as Overhaul was about to challenge the Pink Princess, his muscles gave out as he slumped face first into the ground. Even if he had enough willpower to keep his gauntlets assembled, they broke off into small shards of rock as everything below his neck became paralyzed. What is going on? Why are my muscles working? Cadance just looked at smiled. Don't you remember when you were hit with my magic? It wasn't meant to harm you, it is a paralyzing aphrodisiac, one of my creations. It's a magical poison, which like the name implies, paralyzes the target after being active in victim's body for some time. Next comes my favorite part, the actual aphrodisiac. When your body's functions return, with it comes an insatiable lust. This lust will grow inside you until the point that even the most sound-minded individuals will become nothing more than a pack of dogs during the peak of their mating season. Doesn't it just sound so exciting? You finally succumbing to your lust and raping all those mares you consider your friends. That final line was enough to push Overhaul over the edge with rage. Summoning all his willpower one last time, Overhaul used his quirk to shape the ground into 2 massive stone pillars with Cadance being placed on top of one. The 2 pillars collided making a large arch above Overhaul as he felt fresh blood rain down from the sky. With his bodily functions slowly returning to him, he knew he didn't have much time before he would succumb to its intoxication. Overhaul managed to stumble his way over to the partially completed building, before locking himself inside. It was impossible to turn this into a long-term solution, but he saw no other course of action he could take.